Hello everyone, and welcome back to Snowbound Screams. Tonight, we travel into the forgotten backroads of America, places where light fades, and what remains are stories that refuse to die. Across these hills, rivers, and empty towns are accounts drawn from witness reports, police files, and archived broadcasts. Each one verified, recorded, and retold in their own words. The Pacific Northwest has long been a region of mystery. Its dense forests, misty mountains, and remote wilderness have inspired countless legends. But beneath the folklore lie documented cases that defy explanation, cases of forest rangers who vanished into the night, often at the same precise moment. 2:17 a.m. What happens at this specific time in the wilderness? Why do experienced outdoors people simply disappear? These questions have haunted families, investigators, and fellow rangers for decades. Tonight, we examine 8 verified cases from across Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, each with one chilling detail in common. Now, let us begin with our first story. It was late October of 1998 when Ranger Michael Thompson began his final patrol at Mount Hood National Forest. At 42, Thompson had spent 17 years with the U.S. Forest Service, the last 8 stationed at Oregon's tallest peak. His colleagues described him as methodical, cautious, and deeply familiar with the mountain's moods. That evening, as he prepared for his overnight monitoring of the Timberline Trail area, no one could have predicted it would be the last time they'd see him alive. The weather reports had warned of an approaching storm system, but Thompson had weathered worse. He radioed base at 9:47 p.m. to confirm his arrival at the monitoring station near Silcock's Hut, reporting clear skies and unusually calm winds for the season. His final transmission included routine observations about wildlife activity and trail conditions. Nothing seemed amiss. At 10:30 p.m., he settled in for what should have been an uneventful night of monitoring radio frequencies and weather patterns. The mountain air grew heavy with moisture as clouds rolled in around midnight. Thompson, according to his log entries, made routine checks every hour, documenting temperature changes and wind speeds. At 1:15 a.m., he noted an unusual stillness. The wind had completely ceased, and the forest below had fallen unnaturally silent. Even the nocturnal animals seemed to have vanished. He wrote, "Dead quiet out there, not a single bird or coyote, pressure dropping fast." At 2:17 a.m., something happened that would forever alter the timeline of events. According to the automated recording system at base, Thompson's radio activated for precisely 3 seconds. No voice was transmitted, only what sound analysts later described as a resonant frequency similar to wind through a narrow aperture, but with a harmonic quality inconsistent with natural phenomena. When dispatch tried to raise Thompson afterward, there was only static. Search parties launched at first light, following Thompson's known route from the monitoring station. They found his log open to the final entry, a thermos of still warm coffee, and his service weapon holstered on a nearby chair. The door stood slightly ajar, facing the mountain. Footprints led outside Thompson's standard-issue boots, according to the tread pattern, but stopped abruptly 50 feet from the station, as if he had simply vanished into thin air. No other tracks were visible in the damp soil, and no signs of struggle were detected. The official investigation lasted 73 days, involving over 200 searchers and covering nearly 80 square miles of rugged terrain. Deputy Sheriff Marcus Reynolds, who led the initial search, later stated in a press conference, "We've exhausted every logical explanation. Ranger Thompson was experienced, properly equipped, and in a secure location. His disappearance defies rational understanding." The case remains open with the Hood River County Sheriff's Office, file number 98-1047. What makes this case particularly troubling is the recurring detail of 2:17 a.m. In the 25 years since Thompson's disappearance, at least 7 other Pacific Northwest Rangers have vanished at or near this precise time. Coincidence? Or evidence of something beyond our current understanding? The forest keeps its secrets well, and the mountain watches in silence. Hundreds of miles away in Washington's Olympic National Park, another ranger was about to discover that silence can be deafening. Sarah Jenkins had only been with the National Park Service for 3 years when she accepted the remote post at the Hoh Rainforest Visitor Center in the spring of 2004. At 28, she was ambitious, dedicated, and eager to prove herself in one of the most isolated assignments in the system. Her supervisor, Robert Miller, would later describe her as fiercely independent and perhaps too confident in her abilities. The evening of May 17th began like any other late spring shift. Jenkins conducted her final rounds of the visitor center at 8:45 p.m., locking doors and securing exhibits as per protocol. She radioed dispatch to confirm the center was closed and that she would remain overnight for monitoring, as was routine during the busy season. The weather was unseasonably dry, with a full moon illuminating the massive Sitka spruces and western hemlocks that surrounded the facility. At 11:30 p.m., Jenkins made her last scheduled radio contact, reporting unusual animal behavior. "Deer gathering in the clearing, more than I've ever seen at once," she transmitted. "They're all facing east, perfectly still, almost like they're watching something." The dispatcher noted the observation, but attributed it to normal wildlife patterns. Jenkins then settled in for what should have been a quiet night of paperwork and monitoring. The Hoh Rainforest receives 12 to 14 feet of annual rainfall, creating one of the most lush ecosystems in North America. Its isolation is profound. The nearest town of Forks lies over 30 miles away, and the park itself contains vast tracts of wilderness untouched by roads or development. It was into this environment that Jenkins ventured at approximately 2 a.m., according to security camera footage that shows her leaving the visitor center with only a flashlight and radio. What happened next remains unclear, but at precisely 2:17 a.m., the park's automated monitoring system recorded an anomaly. The emergency transmitter attached to Jenkins's uniform activated for 4.3 seconds before cutting out. The signal was detected by 3 different relay stations, allowing for precise triangulation of its origin, a point approximately 1.2 miles east of the visitor center, in an area of particularly dense old-growth forest. When Jenkins failed to respond to routine radio calls at 3 a.m., dispatch sent a ranger from the nearby Quinault station to investigate. He arrived at 3:47 a.m. to find the visitor center empty but undisturbed. Jenkins's vehicle remained parked in its designated spot, her personal belongings untouched in the staff quarters. The only sign of anything unusual was a security camera that had been inexplicably disabled at 2:16 a.m., 1 minute before the emergency signal. The search began at dawn, involving over 100 personnel from multiple agencies. Despite extensive efforts spanning 23 days, no trace of Jenkins was ever found. The official report notes that search dogs lost the scent completely at the point where the emergency signal had originated. Lead investigator, FBI Special Agent Daniel Park, wrote in his case summary, "The evidence suggests that Jenkins walked voluntarily into the forest. Why she did so and what happened to her remains unknown. What makes this case particularly disturbing is the testimony of a group of backpackers who had been camping approximately 3 miles from the visitor center. In their official statement, they reported hearing a series of melodic tones emanating from the forest around 2:15 a.m., followed by what they described as complete silence. Even the usual sounds of insects and nocturnal animals ceased abruptly. The tones, they claimed, seemed to be moving eastward, away from the visitor center. The National Park Service maintains a missing persons file on Jenkins, case number OLI 2004-0518. To this day, her name appears on the list of employees lost in the line of duty, though the circumstances of her disappearance remain unexplained. The Hoh rainforest continues its ancient rhythms, silent about what happened to Sarah Jenkins in the early morning hours of May 18, 2004. The Cascades of Central Oregon have witnessed countless unexplained phenomena over the centuries, but none as perplexing as the case of Ranger Benjamin Hayes. It was November of 2007 when Hayes, a veteran of 15 years with the Deschutes National Forest Service, vanished during what should have been a routine overnight monitoring trip to the Three Sisters Wilderness. At 46, Hayes knew the area better than most, having personally mapped over 40 miles of trails in the region during his tenure. Hayes began his journey on November 3rd, departing the Crescent Ranger Station at 4:30 p.m. under clear skies. His destination was a remote fire lookout tower at Camp Creek, approximately 12 miles into the wilderness. According to his departure log, he was equipped with standard gear: GPS unit, satellite phone, emergency beacon, cold weather supplies, and enough food for 3 days. The weather forecast predicted mild conditions, though Hayes was known for preparing for the unexpected regardless of forecasts. At 6:45 p.m., Hayes radioed the station to report his progress. "Made good time to the junction," he transmitted. "Everything looks normal out here. Sunset colors on the peaks are particularly vivid tonight." This would be his last confirmed communication with the station. When the night shift dispatcher attempted routine contact at 9:00 p.m., there was no response. Initial concerns were minimal. Hayes was experienced, and the terrain often interfered with radio signals. The first indication that something was seriously wrong came at 2:17 a.m., when the automated monitoring system at the Crescent Ranger Station received a fragmented transmission from Hayes's radio frequency. Audio specialists later analyzed the recording and determined it contained 3 distinct elements. What sounded like Hayes's voice saying, "light," followed by an unidentified high-frequency tone, and concluding with what was described as a sound similar to rushing wind. The transmission lasted precisely 2.8 seconds before cutting to static. What makes this case particularly troubling is the testimony of recreational climber James Mitchell, who had been camping near Moraine Lake, approximately 6 miles from Hayes's intended destination. In his official statement, Mitchell reported seeing unusual atmospheric phenomena around 2:15 a.m. "The sky above the Three Sisters began to pulse with a strange greenish light," he wrote. "There was no sound, just this rhythmic illumination that seemed to originate from above the peaks and cascade downward. It lasted maybe 5 minutes before everything returned to normal." Search operations commenced at first light on November 4th, involving ground teams, aircraft, and specialized tracking units. Hayes's last known position was established based on his 6:45 p.m. radio transmission, but extensive searches of the area between that point and the fire lookout tower yielded no results. The search was officially suspended after 17 days, having covered over 100 square miles of rugged terrain with no sign of the missing ranger. The official investigation, conducted by the Deschutes County Sheriff's Department with assistance from the FBI, noted several unusual details. Hayes's GPS unit, which should have automatically transmitted location data every 30 minutes, had inexplicably stopped functioning at 10:47 p.m. His satellite phone, designed to work in areas without cellular service, showed no record of calls or attempted calls after his 6:45 p.m. transmission. Perhaps most disturbingly, the emergency beacon attached to his gear never activated, despite being designed to trigger automatically upon exposure to water or significant impact. Captain Rebecca Torres of the Deschutes County Search and Rescue Team later reflected on the case. In 15 years of search and rescue operations, I've never encountered a disappearance as complete as Hayes. No tracks, no gear, no body, no explanation. It's as if the wilderness simply swallowed him whole. The case file remains open with the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. Reference number 074892. In the years since Hayes' disappearance, other rangers assigned to the Three Sisters Wilderness have reported unusual phenomena, particularly around the time of 2:17 a.m. These include unexplained lights, sudden temperature drops, and brief periods of absolute silence, even in areas normally rich with wildlife sounds. Whether these reports are connected to Hayes' vanishing remains uncertain, but they contribute to an atmosphere of mystery that continues to surround the jagged peaks of Central Oregon. Crater Lake National Park has long been considered one of the most spiritually significant places in the Pacific Northwest. The Klamath people, who inhabited the region for centuries before European settlement, considered the deep blue waters sacred ground, a place of powerful spirits and mysterious forces. It was into this environment that Ranger Thomas Mitchell ventured on the evening of June 12, 2011, beginning what would become one of the most perplexing disappearance cases in National Park Service history. Mitchell, a 34-year-old naturalist with 6 years of service at Crater Lake, had been assigned to conduct an overnight survey of the park's northern perimeter, an area rarely visited by tourists due to its rugged terrain and limited access. He departed the park headquarters at 5:30 p.m., driving a marked service vehicle equipped with standard emergency gear. His last known communication with park headquarters came at 7:15 p.m., when he radioed to confirm his arrival at the North Junction checkpoint. The weather that evening was unseasonably mild, with clear skies and minimal wind-perfect conditions for Mitchell's work, documenting nocturnal wildlife activity along the park's less-traveled trails. According to his field notes, later recovered from his vehicle, he planned to hike a 3-mile loop through the Pumice Desert before returning to his vehicle for the night. The timeline suggested he would complete this hike by approximately 10:00 p.m. What happened during the hours between 7:15 p.m. and 2:17 a.m. remains largely unknown, but the evidence suggests something extraordinary occurred. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the park's emergency communication system received an automated alert from Mitchell's GPS-enabled radio. The alert indicated a sudden change in elevation from 6,840 feet to 7,115 feet over a period of just 3.7 seconds, followed immediately by loss of signal. Such a rapid elevation change would be physically impossible in the terrain where Mitchell was operating. When park rangers arrived at Mitchell's vehicle at 8 a.m. the following morning, they found it locked and undisturbed. His field notebook lay open on the dashboard, with the final entry reading, "The stars here are different tonight, moving in patterns I've never seen before, almost as if they're responding to something below." His backpack, water bottle, and other personal items remained inside the vehicle, suggesting he had not intended to venture far from his parked position. The search operation that followed was one of the most extensive in Oregon's history, involving over 200 personnel from multiple agencies, including specialized mountain rescue teams, canine units, and aircraft equipped with thermal imaging technology. Despite these efforts, no trace of Mitchell was ever found. The official search was suspended after 19 days, having covered over 150 square miles of rugged terrain. Perhaps the most puzzling aspect of Mitchell's disappearance came to light during the investigation, when park officials reviewed security camera footage from the Crater Lake Lodge. The footage, time-stamped at 2:17 a.m., showed a brief power fluctuation throughout the facility, accompanied by what witnesses described as a low resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. This phenomenon occurred simultaneously with the GPS anomaly detected from Mitchell's radio. Chief Ranger Maria Rodriguez, who oversaw the search operation, later commented, "I've worked in national parks across the country for 25 years, and I've never encountered anything like the Mitchell case. The evidence simply doesn't align with any known scenario. We have an experienced ranger in familiar territory who simply vanishes from a locked vehicle in the middle of the night. The GPS reading defies explanation. It's as if he was lifted straight up into the sky." The National Park Service maintains an active missing persons file on Mitchell, case number CRL 2011-0613. To this day, his name appears on the memorial wall at park headquarters, honoring those who lost their lives in service to preserving America's natural treasures. The mystery of what happened to Thomas Mitchell in the early morning hours of June 13, 2011, remains unsolved, adding another layer to the enigmatic history of Crater Lake. The Siuslaw National Forest stretches along Oregon's central coast, a diverse landscape of coastal dunes, old-growth forests, and remote mountain ranges. It was here, in the heart of this vast wilderness, that Ranger Jessica Walsh vanished on the night of September 8, 2013. Walsh, a 39-year-old wildlife biologist with 11 years of Forest Service experience, had been conducting a multi-day study of spotted owl habitats in the remote Drift Creek area. Walsh's expedition began on September 5th, when she was dropped off by helicopter at a remote research station approximately 20 miles from the nearest road. She was equipped with a satellite phone, GPS tracking device, and enough supplies for 10 days of fieldwork. Her research protocol required daily check-ins with the Corvallis District Office via satellite phone at 7 p.m. These check-ins proceeded normally through September 7th, with Walsh reporting on her observations and confirming her status. The evening of September 8th began like any other in the field. Walsh completed her observations at dusk, returning to her small research cabin at approximately 7:30 p.m. She made her scheduled 7 p.m. check-in earlier that day, noting in her transmission, "The owls are particularly active tonight. Unusual behavior, they seem to be responding to something I can't identify. Almost as if they're communicating with something beyond my hearing range." What happened during the hours between 7:30 p.m. and 2:17 a.m. remains the subject of speculation and investigation. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the Corvallis District Office received an automated alert from Walsh's GPS tracking device. The alert indicated that the device had moved rapidly from the research cabin to a position approximately 2.3 miles away, covering this distance in just 4.2 seconds. Immediately after reporting this impossible movement, the device ceased transmitting. When a routine aerial survey passed over the research station the following morning, the cabin appeared undisturbed from the air. Walsh's research notes lay open on her desk, with the final entry reading, "The forest has gone completely silent. Not just the owls, everything, even the insects. This level of silence is unnatural. I'm going to investigate." Her satellite phone, GPS device, and other essential equipment remained in the cabin, suggesting she had not intended to venture far. Ground teams reached the research station on September 10th, finding it exactly as the aerial survey had suggested, undisturbed, with Walsh's equipment and personal belongings intact. The only sign of anything unusual was a series of strange circular patterns in the dirt outside the cabin, each approximately 3 feet in diameter and arranged in a perfect geometric formation. Soil samples from these areas later revealed trace amounts of an unidentified metallic substance not native to the region. The search operation that followed lasted 27 days, involving specialized Forest Service teams, state, police search units, and volunteer organizations. Despite these efforts, no trace of Walsh was ever found. The official search was suspended after covering over 120 square miles of some of the most rugged terrain in Oregon's coastal range. Dr. Robert Henderson, a professor of forestry at Oregon State University who had worked closely with Walsh, later commented on her disappearance. Jessica was one of the most methodical and cautious researchers I've ever known. She would never have ventured into the forest at night without proper equipment, nor would she have abandoned her research station without cause. The circumstances of her disappearance simply don't align with her character or training. The Siosla National Forest maintains an active missing persons file on Walsh. Case number SNF 2013-009. Her disappearance remains unexplained, though it has become part of the larger pattern of ranger vanishings that occur at or around 2:17 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest. The forest continues its cycles of growth and decay, silent about what happened to Jessica Walsh in the early morning hours of September 9, 2013. The Gifford Pinchot National Forest, located in southwestern Washington, encompasses over 1.3 million acres of diverse wilderness, including the volcanic Mount St. Helens. It was here, in the shadow of this famously active volcano, that Ranger Daniel Kim disappeared on the night of October 29, 2015. Kim, a 41-year-old geologist with 13 years of Forest Service experience, had been conducting seismic monitoring in remote areas of the forest adjacent to the volcano's exclusion zone. Kim's assignment was part of an ongoing study of post-eruption geological activity in the region. He had been working alone for 5 days at a temporary research station approximately 8 miles from the volcano's crater, monitoring seismic activity and collecting gas samples. His protocol required twice-daily check-ins with the Forest Service headquarters in Vancouver, transmitted via satellite phone. These check-ins proceeded normally through October 28th, with Kim reporting routine readings and confirming his status. The evening of October 29th began with typical autumn weather in the region: cool temperatures, intermittent rain, and low clouds obscuring the mountain peaks. Kim made his scheduled 4-hour p.m. check-in, noting in his transmission, "Seismic activity has been unusually quiet today. Even the background tremors that we normally detect have subsided. The volcano seems to be holding its breath." This would be his final communication with the headquarters. What happened during the hours between 4 p.m. and 2:17 a.m. remains largely unknown, but the evidence suggests something extraordinary occurred. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the automated monitoring system at Vancouver headquarters received a series of unusual data transmissions from Kim's seismic equipment. These transmissions indicated a sudden burst of high-frequency seismic activity, unlike anything previously recorded in the region. This burst lasted exactly 3.4 seconds before all monitoring equipment went offline simultaneously. When a helicopter flew over the research station at first light on October 30th, the scene appeared undisturbed from the air. Kim's research equipment was still in place, though all instruments appeared to be powered down. His tent was zipped closed, and his personal belongings were visible inside. The only sign of anything unusual was a series of strange circular impressions in the volcanic soil around the research station, each approximately 4 feet in diameter and arranged in a geometric pattern. Ground teams reached the research station on October 31st, finding it exactly as the aerial survey had suggested. Kim's tent contained his sleeping bag, still warm to the touch, suggesting he had been inside recently. His research notes lay open on a table, with the final entry reading, "The silence here is profound. Even the normal geological background noise has ceased. It's as if something has absorbed all sound and vibration. I'm going to investigate the source." The search operation that followed lasted 31 days, involving specialized Forest Service teams, geological survey experts, and mountain rescue units. Despite these efforts, no trace of Kim was ever found. The official search was suspended after covering over 150 square miles of extremely hazardous terrain, including areas within the volcano's exclusion zone. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, a volcanologist with the U.S. Geological Survey who had consulted on Kim's research project, later commented on his disappearance. "The seismic data we received just before Daniel went missing is unlike anything I've seen in 30 years of studying volcanoes. The frequency patterns don't correspond to any known geological phenomenon. It's as if something artificial was generating those readings. But the energy levels are far beyond any human technology I'm aware of." The Gifford-Pinchot National Forest maintains an active missing persons file on Kim, case number GPN 2015-1030. His disappearance remains unexplained, though it has become part of the larger pattern of ranger vanishings that occur at or around 2:17 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest. The volcano continues its cycles of activity and dormancy, silent about what happened to Daniel Kim in the early morning hours of October 30, 2015. The Umatilla National Forest, spanning over 1.4 million acres across the Blue Mountains of northeastern Oregon and southeastern Washington, is a landscape of deep canyons, high ridges, and vast expanses of remote wilderness. It was here, in one of the most isolated regions of the forest, that Ranger Maria Rodriguez disappeared on the night of August 16, 2017. Rodriguez, a 36-year-old wildlife biologist with 9 years of Forest Service experience, had been conducting a survey of endangered fisher populations in the Wenaha-Tucannon Wilderness. Rodriguez's expedition began on August 12th, when she and her field assistant, 24-year-old Jason Turner, established a base camp at the confluence of the Wenaha and Grande Ronde rivers. Their research required daily hikes into remote drainages, documenting wildlife sightings and setting up motion-activated cameras. Their protocol required nightly check-ins with the Pomeroy District Office via satellite phone. These check-ins proceeded normally through August 15th, with Rodriguez reporting routine observations and confirming their status. The evening of August 16th began with typical summer weather in the region: warm temperatures, clear skies, and a gentle breeze rustling through the ponderosa pines. Rodriguez and Turner made their scheduled 7 p.m. check-in, noting in their transmission, "We've documented some unusual animal behavior today. Multiple species of birds and mammals seem to be responding to something we can't identify, almost as if they're all watching the same thing in the sky." This would be their final communication with the district office. What happened during the hours between 7 p.m. and 2:17 a.m. remains the subject of ongoing investigation. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the Pomeroy District Office received an automated alert from Rodriguez's GPS tracking device. The alert indicated that the device had moved rapidly from the base camp to a position approximately 3.7 miles away and 200 feet higher in elevation, covering this distance in just 5.1 seconds. Immediately after reporting this impossible movement, the device ceased transmitting. When a search team reached the base camp at 9 a.m. the following morning, they found Turner asleep in his tent, apparently unaware that anything was amiss. When awakened, he reported that Rodriguez had gone to bed at approximately 10:30 p.m. the previous evening, and that he had not seen or heard from her since. The camp appeared undisturbed, with Rodriguez's tent zipped closed and her personal belongings visible inside. The only sign of anything unusual was a series of strange circular patterns in the pine needles outside Rodriguez's tent, each approximately 3 feet in diameter and arranged in a perfect geometric formation. Soil samples from these areas later revealed trace amounts of an unidentified metallic substance not native to the region. Turner's tent showed no similar patterns, suggesting that whatever had occurred had specifically targeted Rodriguez. The search operation that followed lasted 34 days, involving specialized Forest Service teams, state police search units, and volunteer organizations. Despite these efforts, no trace of Rodriguez was ever found. The official search was suspended after covering over 180 square miles of some of the most rugged terrain in the Blue Mountains. Turner, the only witness to Rodriguez's disappearance, underwent extensive questioning and passed multiple polygraph examinations. His testimony remained consistent throughout the investigation. He had gone to sleep at approximately 11 p.m. and had awakened when the search team arrived at 9 a.m. He reported hearing nothing unusual during the night, though he did note that the forest went completely silent at one point, which is unusual even for deep wilderness areas. The Umatilla National Forest maintains an active missing persons file on Rodriguez, case number UNF 2017-0817. Her disappearance remains unexplained, though it has become part of the larger pattern of ranger vanishings that occur at or around 2:17 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest. The wilderness continues its cycles of growth and change, silent about what happened to Maria Rodriguez in the early morning hours of August 17, 2017. The Willamette National Forest, stretching over 1.6 million acres along the western slopes of the Cascade Range in Oregon, is a landscape of towering Douglas firs, pristine alpine lakes, and remote wilderness areas. It was here, near the Three Sisters Wilderness, that Ranger Samuel Chen disappeared on the night of December 4, 2019. Chen, a 43-year-old hydrologist with 16 years of Forest Service experience, had been conducting a winter water quality study in remote mountain lakes. Chen's expedition began on December 1st, when he was dropped off by helicopter at a remote camp near Obsidian Falls, approximately 15 miles from the nearest road. He was equipped with specialized winter gear, a satellite phone, GPS tracking device, and enough supplies for 10 days of fieldwork. His research protocol required daily check-ins with the Mackenzie River District Office via satellite phone at 6 p.m. These check-ins proceeded normally through December 3rd, with Chen reporting routine observations and confirming his status. The evening of December 4th began with typical winter weather in the region: cold temperatures, light snow, and clear skies overhead. Chen made his scheduled 6 p.m. check-in, noting in his transmission, "The water quality readings are unusual today. The normally clear mountain lakes show signs of turbidity, as if something has disturbed the sediment from below. I've never seen this phenomenon in winter conditions." This would be his final communication with the district office. What happened during the hours between 6 p.m. and 2:17 a.m. remains largely unknown, but the evidence suggests something extraordinary occurred. At precisely 2:17 a.m., the Mackenzie River District Office received an automated alert from Chen's GPS tracking device. The alert indicated that the device had moved rapidly from his camp to a position approximately 2.8 miles away and 800 feet higher in elevation, covering this distance in just 3.9 seconds. Immediately after reporting this impossible movement, the device ceased transmitting. When a search team reached Chen's camp at 9:30 a.m. the following morning, they found it undisturbed. His tent was zipped closed, and his personal belongings were visible inside. His research equipment remained in place, though all instruments appeared to be powered down. The only sign of anything unusual was a series of strange circular impressions in the snow around his tent, each approximately 3 feet in diameter and arranged in a geometric pattern. Chen's research notes lay open on a table inside his tent, with the final entry reading, "The atmospheric pressure has been dropping steadily since nightfall. The stars appear to be moving in patterns that don't correspond to normal celestial mechanics. I'm going outside to investigate with the spectrograph." The spectrograph, a specialized instrument designed to analyze light patterns, was missing from his equipment cache. The search operation that followed lasted 38 days, involving specialized Forest Service teams, mountain rescue units, and volunteer organizations with winter search expertise. Despite these efforts, no trace of Chen was ever found. The official search was suspended after covering over 160 square miles of some of the most rugged winter terrain in the Cascade Range. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a hydrologist with the U.S. Geological Survey who had consulted on Chen's research project, later commented on his disappearance. The water quality data Sam was collecting just before he went missing shows patterns that simply don't occur in natural systems. The turbidity readings, the chemical composition. It's as if something had introduced foreign materials into these pristine mountain lakes. The timing of these anomalies, coinciding with his disappearance, is deeply troubling. The Willamette National Forest maintains an active missing persons file on Chen, case number WNF 2019-1205. His disappearance remains unexplained, though it has become part of the larger pattern of ranger vanishings that occur at or around 2:17 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest. The mountains continue their cycles of winter and summer, silent about what happened to Samuel Chen in the early morning hours of December 5, 2019. The American landscape remains vast and unknowable, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, where ancient forests meet volcanic peaks in a realm of mist and mystery. The 8 cases we've examined tonight share one chilling detail: the precise time of 2:17 a.m. when something extraordinary occurred, leading to the disappearance of experienced, well-equipped rangers who knew their environment intimately. What significance does this specific time hold? Is it merely coincidence that these vanishings occurred at the same moment? Or does it point to something beyond our current understanding? The evidence suggests patterns that defy conventional explanation. Impossible movements detected by GPS devices, unusual atmospheric phenomena, sudden silence in normally vibrant wilderness areas, and geometric patterns left behind at disappearance sites. The Forest Service has never officially acknowledged these patterns, though internally there exists what has been termed the 217 Protocol, a set of procedures implemented after the 4th disappearance, requiring additional monitoring of ranger activities during the early morning hours. This protocol remains classified, available only to high-ranking officials within the Department of Agriculture. Perhaps most troubling is the gradual increase in frequency of these incidents. What began as isolated events spaced years apart has become more regular, with cases now occurring every 1 to 2 years. If this pattern continues, we can expect another incident in the near future, another experienced ranger vanishing into the wilderness at precisely 2:17 a.m. The families of these missing rangers continue to seek answers, as do the colleagues who work in the same remote areas where their friends disappeared. The wilderness keeps its secrets well, offering no explanation for these vanishings, no closure for those left behind. The mountains stand silent. The forests continue their cycles of growth and decay. And the mystery of what happens at 2:17 a.m. in the Pacific Northwest remains unsolved. If you or someone you know has a true story to share, leave it in the comments below. Your experiences might help us understand these patterns and perhaps prevent future incidents. Thank you for watching Snowbound Screams. Until next time, stay safe out there.